Alice is probably the most elusive character in Closer, a woman who at the same time reveals everything and conceals her true self. Introduced as this mysterious American drifter who literally collides with Dan, her boyfriend, on a London street, Alice becomes the emotional center of the film, even though she constantly slips through others' attempts to define her. She's a complex character in her own story, and yet the shape of that story is carved by the men around her. Hello world, and welcome to Cinema Nostalgica, where we break down nostalgic hidden gems. As soon as the movie starts, we are introduced to Dan and Alice. They catch each other's eyes on a busy London street, and they seem tethered to each other from the very beginning. When we meet Alice, she seems like the kind of girl who's ready to take on the world. We learn that she moved to London to get a fresh start. She's young, beautiful, eccentric, just got off the plane in a hip new city. She seems ready to have fun, a sense of non-traditional solo backpacking, if you will. She calls herself a waif. She has no luggage and not even a place to stay. Meeting Dan seems to be a blessing and a curse for her. He may have been her saving grace by supporting her in this new country, or giving her a sense of stability in a world of chaos that she has created for herself. We learn that she is a stripper and states it very matter-of-factly. I don't get the sense that she is ashamed of it. More like, it is what it is, or what about it? She's tough, yet gentle, mysterious, yet inquisitive. We see her leaning into Dan, interested in his life, making him feel seen and special. Alice is no ordinary woman. She's got red hair, the film's visual shorthand for danger, unpredictability, or for a little bit of crazy. The fact that she gets hit by a car the first day in London tells you how chaotic her life is. Alice isn't naive. She's lived in New York, and she has a load of life experiences. She's that type B girl with thousands of stories. And this is proven by the book that Dan wrote. Alice and Dan's love story starts on the streets, and then when Alice gets hit by a car, their love story continues when they're in the hospital. And it's in this scene that Dan asks if she wants to put her leg up. In this moment, I see the glimmer of love in her eyes. She's smitten. It's such a small gesture, but in that moment, I think she falls for him. Maybe she thought, this is the man who's going to take care of me. She probably thought that Dan would be the one. After all, he looked like the good guy, the stable choice, the man who could pull her out of chaos. Dan, on the surface, looks average at best, nothing eccentric about him. I will give it to him that he was going to work when they first met, but throughout the film, visually, he is the opposite of what I'd imagine a guy for Alice to look like. I'd imagine that she attracts eccentric, creative, edgy type of guys, because she is edgy herself. I believe that Alice falls for Dan, and that may be because he seems like the safe choice, the good guy who's going to take care of her. But in the end, he's actually the worst choice and is not a good guy at all. In these beginning moments, I feel like Alice was struck by Cupid, love at first sight. In the beginning, she's asking Dan loads of questions, trying to figure him out and get to know him. She asks things like, is his father still alive? How does he write obituaries? She's interested in Dan's mundane life of writing obituaries in an office that he calls Siberia. And even Dan is taken aback, asking her, are you sure you want to know all of these boring details about me? This is a skill she probably picked up on during her nights working at strip clubs. Strippers have a rare talent for making men feel seen in a world that often overlooks them. Beneath all the lights and the noise, they offer something quietly powerful, attention without judgment, intimacy without expectation. For the men who feel ordinary, invisible, or worn down by routine, the gaze of a stripper can be electrifying. When Dan meets her, she looks at him like he's fascinating, like he's worth studying, saving, even loving. Through her attention, he experiences a kind of emotional seduction that mirrors what often happens in strip clubs. He feels chosen. Alice sees him in a way the world doesn't, beyond his writer's block, his dull job, and his unremarkable charm. I see her being attached to the bad boy type, and maybe men that disappoint her. We don't know what happened in her past relationship, but we do know that she may carry on a relationship even after seeing red flags. And Alice does ignore some of Dan's red flags, which we will get into later in the video. While Dan is giving her a tour of London, she finds the name Alice Ayres on a plaque in the park. And I have a theory of why she picked that name at all. She fell in love with Dan in the hospital and probably thought, let me connect myself with this man in some way. Dan tells the story that his mother died, and that afternoon, him and his father visited that very park. Anna wanted to be tethered to the story and to this man that she was falling for in some limerence type of way, probably thinking she would never see him again. Then she gave the fake name. And before I move on, I do want to ask the question, why didn't he ask her name at the hospital? He rescues her being unconscious from an accident, rode with her in a cab, got her set up in the hospital, and never thought to ask for her name? Alice Ayres, Jane Jones, they both sound like fake names to me. But it tells me that Dan never really cared to know who she is. I doubt that someone could really pull off a fake name. By watching the film, we know that their relationship lasted about 4 years. Could someone really live under a fake name for 4 years without their partner ever noticing? Did Dan never ask or pry to see her passport? Did Dan ever wonder about her paperwork? How was she able to get a job? It tells me that Dan was always distracted, always more interested in using her as material for his book than knowing who she really was. Did Dan ever question her story? Did she have to get a fake ID? Again, I see Dan as someone who takes and borrows her story, but never really hearing her. Maybe she gave Dan plenty of chances, little clues along the way to really know who she was, and he never took the bait. Maybe she knew he was never listening. I believe Alice took on this new name because she wanted to be a new person, shedding the old version of herself and creating a new life with this new man. Once Dan spun around from walking into the office, she knew she had him. She no longer wanted to be Jane, who was escaping from her old relationship. She wanted to be Alice and be this new person with Dan. There is a time jump, and we see Alice again as she is meeting Dan at Anna's studio. We understand that Dan borrowed her life in hopes that her story would propel him into stardom as a successful novelist. It's when she meets Dan at the studio that Anna and Alice meet for the first time. This is when we are presented with obvious evidence to see that Alice loves Dan more than he loves her. She is very observant of his body language, tone of voice, eye contact, even the flicker of expression in his face. Her intuition is strong. Alice has a sharp instinct and knows something went down between him and Anna, and even tells Anna that he had this look, before she spills out that she knows about the kiss by overhearing their conversation. Alice is strong-willed, yet I do not believe she confronted Dan about this kiss. Alice put all the blame on Anna, which isn't fair. Anna went into the kiss blind. Dan went into the kiss knowing he had a girlfriend and that she would actually be coming up soon to meet him. Throughout the film, it seems like she doesn't want to ruffle his feathers, more so just pandering to him while catering to his every move, not putting herself first, just begging to be with him, while intuitively knowing he is trying to flee. Deep down, she probably knew that Dan would leave one day, and she was right. Another time jump happens in the movie. Right before Anna's gallery opening, she says to Dan, "I'm waiting for you to leave me." Dan is going to see his family, and he does not want Alice to come with him. Again, Alice has great intuition. In this moment, she asks Dan if he is ashamed of being seen with her. It's in this moment that we can assume that he is ashamed of her, doesn't want her to meet his family, leading her on. Jumping through the timeline, we do know that Dan is active in adult chat rooms, perhaps even meeting up with people on his own. We know for sure he's in these chat rooms chatting with men, and maybe females as well, in sexually explicit ways. Is he not getting fulfilled by Alice, or is he just constantly on the prowl? I don't believe his chats with Larry was the first or last time he's doing this. Some may call it cheating, but Alice must have felt him being distant. She even asks him, "Why don't you let me love you?" A question that only Dan can answer. And I believe it's because he's just a little boy. My next video will be on Dan, so make sure you subscribe to the channel so you could get updates on the next character analysis. At Anna's art gallery opening is when she meets Larry for the first time. Alice's aura, her mystery, comes from her ability to make men fall in love with her. She toys with men like Larry with ease. And during her conversation with Larry, she mentions that Dan left out the truth in his book about her. Did she lie about it all, or just lying to Larry? The mystery of her backstory creates an aura of suspicion around her that is consistent throughout the entirety of the film. Later, when Larry is with Anna, he calls Alice a little girl, that she's sly and cheeky, and she is. But unlike Anna, Alice is not icy or emotionally repressed. She's more of a waif, fragile but emotionally mature in a way that others aren't. She is able to love someone with her entire being and be faithful. She even makes them the center of her life. And maybe this is where she's actually a little immature. So let me know in the comments below. Is she mature by being a good partner or immature by making her partner the center of her universe? Let me know in the comments below. Maybe it's the tricks that she picked up from working in strip clubs, or maybe it's something deeper, but she knows how to make men fall in love with her. But with Dan, he cannot be satisfied with being only with her, and that is what maybe makes him different. Maybe she was struck by the conundrum of wanting something you can't truly have. Sure, they were in a relationship, but he never truly opened up and met her halfway in their relationship. She genuinely loved him, and she never understood why he couldn't truly open up and meet her halfway in their relationship. Even before his affair with Anna, she was begging to be seen. It seems to me that Dan was not interested in confirming his love with Alice or making her feel safe and content in their relationship. When Dan confesses his love for Anna and tells Alice about their affair, moments earlier we see that she is sleeping on the couch. There are many scenes where we see Alice being vulnerable in this movie. For example, when she is hit by the car. We also see her vulnerable when she is crying at Anna's studio. We see her on the couch in pajamas. She doesn't even have a blanket to comfort her. She seems cold. This might be the most significant image of her that we have and what her relationship with Dan must have really felt like. When Dan comes in, she wakes up immediately, ready to cater to him and make him some food. She's even dog-like, just waiting for her owner, just waiting to be comforted or cared for or care for him. And it's chilling because later, Dan describes Larry and Anna's relationship in those exact terms. But the truth is, Alice was already living like that with him. During this confrontation, it is clear that in love, Alice is more concerned with ego. She can't understand why Dan doesn't love her or wants to be with someone else. She acts if it's because Anna is successful, and I do think that that is a part of it. Dan still chose to give in to Alice, and he even left his linguist girlfriend Ruth for her. He knew that Alice was unstable by moving to a new country and essentially being homeless, but he also knew she was wild, crazy, and loved with him. He knew Alice's position and then seemed to resent her later for it, saying it in so many ways. He said he loves Anna because she doesn't need him, implying that he knows that Alice does. Saying that Anna doesn't need him can be seen as emotionally and financially. Alice doesn't have a solid career, but Anna does. And the fact that Dan's book didn't go well, he maybe felt trapped in not being able to elevate himself financially with Alice. Maybe he wanted out. Maybe he was tired of being with a girl and wanting to be with Anna, a successful woman. The confrontation scene clearly mirrors the scene between Anna and Larry. Alice asking and prying for emotional explanations from Dan, while Larry is prying for physical explanations from Anna. Larry wants to know about the sex. Alice wants to know about the emotion. She tells Dan, "I'm the one that leaves." So for Alice, there's no gray area. She either stays, completely entangled in a toxic love, or she cuts ties completely. But Alice is a liar too, not only because of her name, but because she leaves Dan's apartment while she's still in love with him, slipping out and leaving him with no closure after she convinces him to talk to her and try to work it out again. That was all about the fear of abandonment. She doesn't get left. It's very egotistical for her to be this way. But honestly, Dan has mentally checked out and has probably been checked out of the relationship years ago. But Alice uses the old push and pull method, knowing that she can manipulate Dan to a certain degree. But again, Alice says that she only leaves a relationship when she doesn't love the person anymore. So was that a lie? If she would have stayed with Dan and they worked it out, we don't know what could have happened. Maybe he actually would have ended the relationship with Anna. I'm not saying that I believe that. I'm just saying, is this another one of Alice's lies? The next time we see Alice is when she's at the strip club and Larry shows up. It's no coincidence that Anna is a lady of the night and Larry is a patron of the night. She knows exactly how to play with Larry's emotions and his wallet. She says that they are not allowed to touch each other. She also says she doesn't desire him. And he thanked her for his honesty. Again, this film goes back and forth, and we don't really know what's real and what's fake, what's the truth and what's a lie when it comes to Alice. Like I just said, she tells Larry straight up that she does not desire him. But when she's in the hotel room with Dan, she said she slept with him because she desired him. People can change their mind, so maybe by the end of the night, Alice was ready to be with Larry, but still, we really just don't know the truth of what she's saying. And that's what makes her so captivating throughout the film. Larry tells her, hey, let's go to a hotel, and Alice says that she's not a whore, which we know is actually the opposite of Anna's persona. Remember in my last video about Anna, she does not deny it when somebody calls her a whore, or that she likes the filth. I find it so interesting that conventionally one might call or think that Alice is a whore due to her profession as a stripper, but in the lens of this movie, she is not. Her counterpart Anna is. This is also when we hear the name Jane for the first time. I believe that she tells Larry her name is Jane only because she left Dan and can now shed the Alice persona. But Dan comes back into her life. He learns where she works from Larry, and he comes to be with her again. And when she sees him at the club, it is clear that she is still madly in love. She plans a vacation with him, her treat, to New York City. And maybe it's during this trip that she was finally going to show him her passport. Maybe she wanted to take him to New York and be Jane again, or be a new person. She even quit smoking through what she calls deep inner strength. You ever have the feeling when you finish watching a movie you embody qualities of the characters? Or when you're in a new place and you feel like you have a clean slate and can be whoever you want to be? I think this is what Alice does. And I think she was ready to show Dan her true self. New York City is vast yet very small. If they ran into Alice's friends or old circle, they would know her name. Plus, with Dan's playful nature, he would have definitely wanted to see her passport in the airport, especially because this night at the hotel, she said it's in a secret place and no one ever could see her passport. So I could see Dan, when she whips it out, peeking over or playing to snatch it out of her hands. With them traveling together, and with Dan being in New York City, she couldn't play off this Alice charade for too much longer. But the couple didn't make it to New York. During the hotel scene, we see another form of badgering similar to what Larry did to Anna. He wants to know all the details between Alice and Larry at the club, pressing to know if they slept together. But that's the deal breaker for her. She's absolutely done. She says it's because I don't want to lie, meaning she can't keep lying to him over and over, and I also think that this is when the name comes into play as well. And she also says, and I can't tell the truth, knowing that Dan wouldn't forgive her and it would be a thorn in their relationship if she told him about Larry. She knows her man and that he would never get over it. So she tells him it's over. She doesn't love him anymore. And because she ended it, she does tell Dan about her and Larry. But it's when she finds out that Dan was playing games with her this entire time, like a child, like a little boy, how he couldn't just come out and say, hey, I know what you did with Larry. He's toying and testing her. And once she sees that he's playing these games and can't just outright ask the question, she is completely turned off, realizing he would never grow up and will always be the little boy in a grown body eating sandwiches with the crust cut off. She can't see, feel, or touch this love from Dan, a feeling that has probably been brewing since the beginning, and it's something that even the audience can pick up on. We know that Dan does not truly love her, and it's clear that he is only with her because Anna didn't choose him. And then the slap. Alice, who once made him feel extraordinary, now refuses to give him what he wants, and lets him know she can no longer be conquered. When she denies him this validation and questions his actions as a man, he reverts to the only language his arrested development knows: violence. Alice's calm strength only deepens his humiliation, and the slap is the tantrum of a boy who cannot handle his actions as a man. And then we see that she finally leaves him for good, and that's when we know she's really over him. In my theory, Alice just wanted to build a new life for herself. She left New York because of boy problems. She leaves London for the same reason. Unlike Anna, who stays in toxic relationships and wallows in them, Alice escapes. She goes where she's loved and leaves when she is not in love anymore. In the end, she simply got the ick with Dan, realizing he didn't truly love her, that he was still obsessed with Anna, and by extension, also being obsessed with Larry. She saw this and needed to leave. It was going to be a toxic, never-ending story. Alice is cheeky, sly, fragile, mysterious, and yes, a liar. But she's also the only character in Closer who walks away. Everyone else remains trapped in cycles of obsession and betrayal. But Alice, she loves hard but still allows herself a little space to fall out of love. We don't know her exact deal breakers, but when her fight or flight instincts kick in, she chooses flight, with the only explanation being, I don't love you anymore, goodbye. But here's the tragedy. No one in Closer truly cares about Alice. Not Anna, who steals her man, not Dan, who obsesses over another woman while taking Alice's life and stories for his book, without even really hearing or catering to her needs as his woman, not Larry, who humiliates her in the strip club, using her body as revenge, and even Alice's very identity becomes overlooked when she is clearly screaming it from the rooftops. It's tragic for the audience as well. Her names, Jane Jones, Alice Ayres, they both sound fake, almost like placeholders. That's why her final act feels so cathartic. No one truly sees her. She's like a ghost, in our lives, both intimate and unknowable. So thank you all so much for watching, especially if you made it to the end of this video. Please make sure to give it a like and subscribe to the channel.